Just as the end of the age prophecy declares, both Russia and China have major parts to play in the end of the age, but America will slip into invisible oblivion. End times prophecy treats America like she does not exist at the time when the end of the age prophecies are being fulfilled. And that's Obama's agenda. But getting back to the New World Order plan, what about the Illuminati non-integrating nations business? The ones who have to be kicked into the global system. Why aren't they in the system? What are the technical factors that are keeping them out? Repressive dictatorships run by one man. Just start thinking of, wait, where's my paper? I could only print 2 of these out. Maybe you can recycle them. And I put a little red dot where Israel is. You can just pass it around. You see the dotted line around the non-integrating countries or nations. You see it? The core group, like the United States and Europe and all, they're outside of that line. You'll see, I'm going to name the countries that are in that non-integrating thing there. So what's keeping them out is repressive dictatorships. Start thinking of who we've gone in after and replace the old regimes. Do we ever know why they're doing this? I never really thought about it. It's just like, well, they're bad, they're going to put them in there, but somebody else bad goes in. Yeah, why are they doing all this? Now you can start understanding where this is coming from. Another technical factor is repressive religions. You can hang on to them that hold on to tradition with all their might, resisting the new paradigm. Tradition. Repressive religions that hold on to tradition. Well, that's us. Why do you think they want to get rid of us? Okay. Abject poverty is mentioned as a reason a country is not connected to the global system. But poverty is usually the result of a repressive dictatorship that either siphons huge resources out of the economy or is so repressive he won't allow the individual freedoms necessary to produce wealth in the economy. So can you start seeing the nations you're thinking of are fitting this picture? Number 4, civil wars also keep a country from being able to join the functioning core. Thus, America has taken real ownership of the strategic security, trying to say that, of these types of countries. We have taken control of the strategic security of Iraq, have we not? After taking control of Baghdad, our forces amassed on the borders of Syria and Iran, threatening them with military force if we deem necessary to take control of their strategic security. We've also seen the support for the Muslim Brotherhood in taking over Egypt and the subsequent civil war retaliation within that country. In other words, we have seen in the last few years the removal of many of the dictators. We've got to get rid of the dictators or you can't join the global system. Saddam, Gaddafi, Bin Laden, Morsi, and now the struggle to get rid of Assad. All those regimes, all those countries in that non-integrating gap. Dictators who were long established and evidently holding back the New World Order, which is set to bring forth the Antichrist. Right now we're seeing John Kerry trying to force the Illuminati plans to divide Israel even more by forcing an agreement, this is just in the news, to allow the Vatican and international forces to oversee East Jerusalem. That's the U.S. peace plan. Whether this will happen, even for a short time, I don't know. I tend to think Israel is going to be provoked into fulfilling Isaiah 17, the oracle against Damascus, and Psalm 83 and Obadiah, which is the annihilation of the people of Edom, whose descendants are the Palestinians. But if nothing else, we are witnessing right now the preview of the beginning of the 70th week of Daniel. Just as our timeline of the 3 weeks of Jacob's trouble was a rehearsal for the 70th week. You remember why we said it was a rehearsal? Because it introduced for the very first time recognition of Israel's right to exist, which was the Abrahamic covenant. And what's the covenant that's going to be strengthened at the time of the Antichrist? The old Oslo Accord. Recognition of their right to exist in the land that God gave them. So it was a preview before that 3 weeks of Jacob's trouble started. If our timeline holds, which so far it has. According to the Illuminati plan, America has been instrumental in all the wars of the 20th century, isn't that right? And is now moving into high gear to force all the rest of the countries into the world into this new global system. Anytime American troops show up, be it combat, a battle group pulling off the coast as a reminder, or a peacekeeping mission, it tends to be in a place that is relatively disconnected from the world, where globalization hasn't taken root because of a repressive regime, abject poverty, or the lack of a robust legal system. It's these places that incubate the global terrorism. Draw a line around these military engagements and you've got what I showed you on there, the non-functioning gap. All those countries within that area. Those countries who are not now properly connected to the global system economically or politically are likely to warrant a U.S. military response. That is an invasion or threat of an invasion, and certainly a public demand for a regime change. One other possible way to overthrow a dictator, short of invasion, is internal dissent.
That's why we're funding Al-Qaeda in Syria.
Why Benghazi happened.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I mean, the Syrian rebels are really Al-Qaeda.
Yep. Consider a Western intelligence expert in the art of stirring up dissent within the targeted country. These dissidents would appear to be rising up spontaneously. They would appear to be rising up spontaneously against what doesn't matter. That's all I thought of Hillary saying when I read that. You know, oh, it was spontaneous. It was a spontaneous YouTube.
Right.
It would appear to be rising up spontaneously against a wicked and repressive regime, when the reality is that they are created, funded, and directed by one or more Western intelligence services. That's just a fact. The key is to create intense instability within each country within the non-integrating gap region. You know, this could be, somebody might just poo-poo this whole thing if we weren't seeing it happen. We're seeing it happen right now. It has been happening. It's getting worse. The key is to create intense instability within each country within the non-integrating gap region, either through invasion, the threat of invasion, economic sanctions, or an internal dissident group fighting against the entrenched dictator. Stability must be replaced with instability. That's the Illuminati plan to get rid of them. Stability must be replaced by instability. That's your key to understanding this. Furthermore, regarding sparing an entrenched dictator just because he's pro-West, if he is standing in the way of being properly connected to the core functioning states, or of surrendering his national sovereignty so his country can be melded into the planned regional government, he can be targeted for overthrow even if he is pro-West. Morsi was pro-West. Morsi had a 30-year agreement with Israel and he had kept the peace. And the Muslim Brotherhood gets in there, democratically elected, and they say, our peace agreements with Israel's out the window. We don't know what we're going to do to you yet. The point I'm trying to make is so you see that this is actually happening. This isn't a conspiracy. It's what's happening and how it's bringing things together. It's actually God's plan that He's allowing these things to happen to bring it all together, to do His plan the way He is going to redeem Israel and the world. Don't get me going. These disconnected nations are called the non-functioning gap. Thomas Barnett of the United States Naval War College stated in a truly arrogant fashion in Esquire magazine the threat to invade these countries, and reportedly stated in a rather flippant manner, and here's his quote, "So where do we schedule the U.S. military's next round of away games? The pattern that has emerged since the end of the Cold War suggests a simple answer: in the gap." Stated right out. Naval War College. Our invasion of countries like Iraq in Gulf Wars 1 and 2, with the resulting death and destruction of civilians and infrastructure in its wake, is arrogantly written off as away games. Can you begin to understand how the people living in these non-integrating gap nations hate us? They hate us. And I have to admit, I wondered, we go in there and do all this humanitarian aid, we help them all the time, we're always the world's policemen and doctors and all this. Why do they hate us? They know what's going on better than we do, I guess. So I had the map of the non-integrating nations that you saw. Those countries that are considered to be non-integrating fall into the following regions: the Caribbean Rim, virtually all of Africa, the Balkans, the Caucasus, I guess that's how you say it, Central Asia, the Middle East, Israel accepted, Southwest Asia, and much of Southeast Asia. The population of these non-integrating nations is 2 billion people, or 1/3 of mankind. Well, it's more than that now. You know what the plan, I didn't address it in this, but in things I was reading about it, the plan is the ones who won't comply, can't comply, refuse to comply, we'll nuke them. Because there's a time factor. The Illuminati is following a time line like we are. And if it doesn't happen, when the seals start opening,